Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to talk about a new project we have, this John Deere 317. Alright, so today's video is going to be more of an introduction on this project. I haven't had any 317s on the channel before. I've had 316 own-ins, my 318, a bunch of 200 series, but this is the only 317 that I've had up to this point. Some of you might already be familiar with the 317 and know that it sort of has a bad reputation. The 317 was John Deere's first garden tractor with a twin-cylinder engine, and in these they put a Kohler KT17 engine. The early iterations of the KT17 had lubrication issues, which gave this tractor and some other makes and models of tractors a bad reputation because they were associated with the tractor as being unreliable. They made these from 1979 to 1983, and it wasn't really until the later end of production Kohler updated the KT17 to what's called a Series 2, which eliminated these lubrication problems. So some of these tractors had Series 2 engines installed in from the factory. Others, they replaced them under warranty with either the KT17 Series 2 or in some cases the Onan P218G. The 317 can use the same front attachments as the earlier 300 series, as well as the 120 and 140 that were before that, and all the later 300 series like the 318, 330, 332, and so on. This was basically the top of the line 300 series for this time period, as the 318 hadn't been developed yet. So you do have dual rear brakes, hydrostatic transmission, all the other standard features, dual spool hydraulics, and so on that you would expect from the top of the line 300 series. All right, so that's about all I'm going to cover for history of the tractor. Just sort of wanted to give a brief overview of how these related to the other 300 series in the lineup. I might do a little bit more detailed video on that later, as well as a comparison to my 318, so stay tuned for that. All right, so for this particular tractor, how did I end up with it? So I was recently on a trip down south into North Carolina, visiting some relatives, and I'd already had my trailer with me because I was buying another piece of equipment while I was down there. So I figured why not, look around and see if I could find anything else to fill up the trailer for the trip, make it worth my while. So I started looking around to see what I could see for sale down there, and I came upon this 317. It appeared to be in good shape. As you can see, this has a later 48-inch replacement deck on it, which is a pretty desirable deck. But beyond that, I didn't know much about it, so I reached out to the seller and asked a couple questions. And one of the questions I asked was, for a picture of the engine nameplate, because I wanted to determine whether this tractor had a Series 1 or a Series 2 KT17. Because this particular tractor is a 1980. He did have a picture in the ad of the serial number on the tractor. So from the factory, this would have had a Series 1, but I wanted to determine before I took the drive to go look at it what it had. So the seller was unable to provide that photo for me. So I took the chance and I took the drive up to take a look at it anyway. I had also noticed in the photo that this tractor had the guard and pulley on it for a bagging system, as well as a bracket on the back. So I asked the seller, hey, do you have the bagger, or is it just missing? And to my surprise, he said, oh, I kind of forgot about it. I do have it. It's in my attic. I can get it out. So now knowing that, the tractor had a later replacement deck that looked like it was in good shape, as well as a full bagging system, the price was pretty good. So it was worth my while to take the trip up there and take a look at it. And when I got there, I took a look at the tractor and noted that it does, in fact, have a KT17 Series 2 engine in it. So at some point in this tractor's life, it was replaced. The ad for the tractor did state that it hadn't been running a while, but when I got there to look at the tractor, the seller told me that it hadn't been running about 10 years, which was a lot longer than I anticipated. In addition to that, there was no battery in the tractor, and I didn't have one with me on my trip to be able to put in it and try it out. So I had no way to run this tractor before I bought it. So once I got it back home to Pennsylvania, I started to take a look and see what all the things that it might need. One of the things I noticed right away is the battery tray was rotted out, so I went ahead and ordered a used replacement for that. I did try to borrow the battery for my 318 and put it in there, but ran into issues with the battery cables being too short, so at some point the battery cables had been replaced with something that fit, possibly a smaller battery or whatever. So I had to go ahead and make new cables to accommodate the proper size battery for this tractor. And once I did that, made sure the tractor had good oil in it, I went ahead and tried to start it. And to my surprise, it fired right up and seemed to run pretty well. There's no smoke or anything like that. It does have a little bit of surging at a higher RPM. It could be a chance the carburetor needs rebuild, or I just need to do some tuning on it or something like that. But for something that's sat for 10 years supposedly in a garage, it's running pretty well right now. I do still have a lot of maintenance to go over on this. Points condenser, spark plugs, transaxle fluid change, all those sorts of things like that you should do. to something once to get it caught up on maintenance I need to do to this thing yet. Early on here, I didn't want to put a ton of that effort into it just until I got to see what I bought and whether or not it ran at all. I mean, I could have easily bought this and got it home and found out that it had a bad knock or a thrown rod or something like that, because I just flat out wasn't able to check any of that sort of thing whenever I was looking at it. This is one of those times where the gamble seems to have sort of paid off. I've been on the other end of that in the past before, where I've bought something, with some risk involved and sort of paid for it later. So far, so good with this one. It's a little bit too early to tell long term. I have run the mower deck. It seems to be pretty good. I might go ahead and rebuild, all the spindle bearings and stuff this winter anyway, just to get it all up to speed. Like I mentioned earlier, transaxle fluid, points condenser, and all that kind of stuff all need to be done. I would like to do videos on a lot of that stuff, so stay tuned for that. Other odds and ends I can think of, it was missing a headlight lens. I've already replaced that. As a broken tail light, I have one of those on the way. It could use a new seat. The one that's on is not terrible. I've seen a lot worse before, but I'd like to have a brand new seat on it at some point here too. But all of those sorts of things will wait until I get through the meat of the main maintenance stuff, like the engine transaxle, and make sure that this is something that I want to throw some additional money at. And depending on where all that ends up, whether or not I keep this tractor, I'm sort of considering right now changing this over to be the tractor that I mow with in the summertime, and taking the 318 to use for snow in the wintertime and other sort of heavier duty that I need the 3.4. This tractor here would probably be a pretty good mowing tractor. So at least for a while, I tend to have both of them, especially with the 318 sort of being in questionable status as of late. With the engine issues it has recently had. So it's a good idea, I think, right now for me to have at least two here to have a backup in case there's an issue. All right, everybody, that's all I have for today's video. A lot more to come on this tractor as I go through it, so stay tuned for that. If you like today's video, give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.